Before bread became something eaten without thought, it was something trusted with life itself. There was a time when a single loaf was not light, soft, or sweet, but heavy in the hands and honest in its purpose. When people ate bread, they did not feel foggy or restless. They felt grounded, steady, able to work, walk, endure, and sleep without hunger returning too soon. Today, bread surrounds us in abundance, yet leaves the body strangely empty. It fills the mouth, but not the strength. It satisfies for a moment and then quietly asks for more, and we rarely stop to ask why. What changed between then and now? What did people understand when bread was baked slowly, grain was ground by stone, and time was allowed to shape nourishment before it ever reached the body? This is not a story about the past being perfect. It is a story about something being lost, a quiet wisdom, a patience that once turned simple grain into lasting strength. Tonight, we step back into an older world, where bread was built for endurance, not indulgence, where food worked with the human body instead of overwhelming it. And as we uncover the breads that nourished generations, we will begin to see why modern bread looks fuller than ever, yet leaves so many feeling unfed. Rye bread, strength built for harsh realities. In the cold lands of medieval Europe, rye was not something people chose because it tasted better. It was the grain that answered hardship, when the soil was weak, when frost ruined other crops, when the growing season was short and unforgiving. Rye still stood. It bent in the wind, survived the cold, and gave people something dependable when nothing else would grow. This grain shaped the kind of bread people ate and the kind of strength they needed. Rye bread was dark, heavy, and firm in the hands. It did not fall apart easily, and neither did the people who relied on it. One piece could sit in the stomach for hours, releasing energy slowly instead of all at once. Hunger did not rush back. The body felt steady, grounded, and capable. Farmers ate rye before long days in frozen fields. Soldiers carried it on journeys where food was scarce. Builders depended on it to keep their strength from morning until night. Rye bread did not excite the body, but it supported it. It worked quietly, doing exactly what nourishment is meant to do. Modern white bread behaves very differently. It enters the body fast, burns quickly, and leaves nothing behind but hunger and tiredness. Energy rises sharply and then collapses. The body asks for more, not because it needs food, but because it was never truly fed. Rye bread did not promise comfort or pleasure. It promised stability. It stayed with the body, supported long effort, and helped people endure lives that demanded resilience every single day. That quiet reliability is why it fed generations and why the body still recognizes its strength today. Barley bread, the forgotten grain of endurance. In the cold and unforgiving lands of medieval Europe, rye was not grown because people preferred it. It was grown because life demanded it. When the soil was thin, when the rains were unpredictable, when frost arrived early and stayed long, rye still rose from the ground. Other grains failed under those conditions. Rye endured. And because it endured, people endured with it. This grain became a quiet companion to survival. Families depended on it year after year, knowing it would not abandon them when the land was harsh. Rye did not ask for perfect fields or gentle weather. It accepted struggle and returned nourishment in a world where food security was never guaranteed. That reliability meant everything. The bread made from rye reflected the life it supported. It was dark in color, firm to the touch, and heavy in the hands. When baked, it carried the scent of earth and grain, not sweetness. A small portion felt filling because the body worked slowly with it. Rye did not rush through the stomach. It stayed, releasing energy little by little, keeping the body steady rather than excited. For farmers, this meant strength that lasted from dawn until the sun disappeared behind frozen hills. For soldiers, it meant fuel that could carry them across long distances without weakness. For builders and craftsmen, it meant the ability to work hour after hour without sudden fatigue. Rye bread did not create quick bursts of power. It created quiet endurance. The body responded to rye differently because rye respected the body. Its dense structure slowed digestion, which kept hunger away and prevented sharp rises and falls in energy. People felt grounded after eating it. Their hands stayed steady. Their focus remained clear. They did not constantly think about their next meal because the last one had truly nourished them. Modern white bread breaks this relationship. It enters the body quickly and disappears just as fast. Energy rises suddenly and collapses soon after. Hunger returns not because the body needs food, but because it was never supported in the first place. What feels light and soft on the tongue becomes heavy and empty inside. Rye bread was never meant to entertain the senses. It was meant to carry people through cold mornings, hard labor, and uncertain futures. It was eaten slowly, often in silence, with respect for the effort it took to grow and bake. Each loaf represented resilience, patience, and trust in something steady. That is why rye bread nourished generations, not because it was exciting, but because it was faithful. It stayed with the body when life demanded strength, and it gave people something modern food rarely offers anymore: lasting support instead of momentary comfort. Spelt, when wheat was still human. Long before food was about taste or pleasure, barley stood as one of humanity's quiet protectors. It was one of the earliest grains people learned to trust, not because it was impressive, but because it was dependable. Barley grew where conditions were uncertain, where rainfall was uneven, and where life demanded patience. Medieval people understood that a grain did not need to look refined to be powerful. It needed to sustain the body when days were long and strength could not fail. Barley bread was simple, dense, and deeply grounding. It carried a weight that reminded people they had eaten something real. When it entered the body, it did not rush. It settled. Digestion moved slowly and steadily, giving energy that lasted instead of fading. Hunger stayed quiet, and the body remained calm and capable. This kind of food was not meant to excite the senses. It was meant to hold the body together through work, cold, and uncertainty. Those who labored the hardest often relied on barley the most. Farmers ate it before sunrise and trusted it to carry them through hours of physical effort. Shepherds and travelers depended on it when meals were few and distances were long. Barley supported endurance, not bursts of speed. It allowed the body to keep going without asking for constant replenishment. Barley also treated the stomach with kindness. It cooled the body, soothed digestion, and helped maintain balance. In a time without medicine or supplements, this mattered deeply. People learned through experience that barley strengthened them without agitation. It worked quietly, asking for nothing in return. Over time, barley faded from daily bread as softer. Whiter flours took its place. What replaced it looked refined, but it lacked the strength barley once offered. Modern bread fills the mouth but leaves the body unsettled. Energy rises briefly, then collapses. Hunger returns quickly, not because the body has worked hard, but because it was never properly nourished. Barley bread was never designed to impress. It was designed to endure. It carried generations through hard seasons and long days. By offering something modern food often forgets: steady strength, calm digestion, and the ability to keep going without excess. That quiet endurance is why barley once stood at the center of daily life, and why its absence is still felt in the body today. Sourdough. Time as an ingredient. There was a time when wheat worked with the human body instead of against it. In that time, spelt was one of the grains people trusted most. It was wheat in its natural form, grown slowly, harvested with care, and used without force or manipulation. Nothing about spelt was rushed, and because it was not rushed, it remained gentle. Spelt grain carried strength, but it did not overwhelm the body. Its structure was simpler, more balanced, and easier to break down. When people ate bread made from spelt, they did not feel heaviness or discomfort. The stomach accepted it calmly. Energy arrived steadily and stayed. The body recognized it as food, not as something foreign it needed to fight. Medieval people did not analyze gluten or digestion the way we do today. They learned through living. If a bread caused discomfort, weakness, or illness, it was avoided. Spelt remained in use because it did not disturb the body. It supported long days of work, prayer, travel, and survival without creating strain. What we now call wheat problems did not exist in the same way because wheat itself was different. Spelt had not been altered for speed, softness, or mass production. It grew taller, ripened slower, and carried its nutrients intact. The grain respected time, and time protected the grain. Modern wheat changed when food became an industry. Crops were altered to grow faster, bake softer, and last longer on shelves. The grain stopped serving the body and started serving efficiency. Many people today struggle not because wheat is evil, but because it is no longer what it once was. Spelt reminds the body of an older agreement between food and life. It does not excite or overwhelm. It supports quietly. It nourishes without noise. For many people who feel burdened by modern bread, spelt feels familiar in a way they cannot explain. The body simply relaxes. This is what it means when wheat was still human. It fed without harm. It strengthened without excess. It existed to support life, not to dominate it. And that quiet harmony is something the body has never forgotten, even if modern food has. Mixed grains, balance over purity. In the medieval world, bread was never rushed, because life itself was not rushed. People understood that grain needed time to become nourishment, and sourdough was the natural result of that understanding. Dough was mixed and then left to rest, sometimes for a full day or longer, allowing nature to do its quiet work. Wild fermentation transformed the grain slowly, gently changing it into something the body could truly accept. During this waiting, something important happened. The dough softened, not just in texture but in nature. Parts of the grain that were difficult for the body to handle began to break down on their own. Minerals that were once locked away became available. The bread became easier to digest, calmer in the stomach, and kinder to the body. This process was not guided by machines or chemicals. It was guided by patience. People did not think of fermentation as a health trend. They simply knew from experience that bread made this way felt different. It did not cause heaviness. It did not disturb the stomach. It did not create sudden hunger soon after eating. Instead, it settled slowly, offering steady strength and quiet satisfaction. A person could work, walk, or pray for hours without feeling drained. Modern bread abandoned this wisdom. Time was removed, replaced by speed and shortcuts. Dough is now forced to rise quickly, pushed by additives that mimic what fermentation once did naturally. The result looks like bread, but the body feels the absence of patience. Digestion becomes harder. Energy becomes unstable. The stomach struggles because the grain was never truly prepared. Sourdough respected the rhythm of the human body because it followed the rhythm of nature. It allowed grain to change before asking the body to change it. This small act of waiting made a great difference. Bread became nourishment instead of burden. In a world that now moves faster than the body was designed to handle, sourdough stands as a reminder that time is not an obstacle to health. It is an ingredient. When food is given time, the body feels it. When time is taken away, the body pays the price. Oat bread, fuel for cold and distance. Medieval people did not believe that one grain alone held all the answers. They lived close to the land, watched their bodies carefully, and learned that balance mattered more than perfection. This understanding shaped the way they made bread. Instead of chasing one pure grain, they often blended what the land offered. Wheat was mixed with rye. Barley was combined with oats. The loaf became a quiet harmony rather than a single voice. These mixed grain breads were not accidents or signs of poverty. They were practical wisdom. Each grain brought something different to the body. One offered strength, another steadiness, another warmth or calm digestion. Together, they created bread that nourished more completely and more gently than any single grain could on its own. The body responded well to this balance. Digestion became smoother. Energy stayed even. Hunger arrived slowly instead of suddenly. People could work long hours without feeling heavy or weak. Mixed grains reduced strain on the stomach because no single element dominated the system. The body did not feel overwhelmed or irritated. It felt supported. Modern bread moved in the opposite direction. Purity became the goal. One refined flour, one uniform texture, one predictable result. What was lost in this process was resilience. When food becomes too narrow, the body loses flexibility. Digestion becomes sensitive. Energy becomes unstable. Small imbalances begin to feel large. Nature never fed humans through isolation. Fields were diverse. Seasons changed. Meals reflected variety, not sameness. Mixed grain bread honored that reality. It worked with the body's natural need for balance rather than forcing it into a rigid pattern. These loaves were dense, filling, and deeply grounding. They did not promise softness or sweetness. They promised stability. They reminded people that strength comes from cooperation, not domination. That lesson extended beyond food and into life itself. Mixed grain bread nourished generations because it respected complexity. It accepted that the body thrives when supported from many sides. In choosing balance over purity, medieval people unknowingly protected their health in a way modern food has forgotten. Dark bread was normal. White bread was rare. For most of history, dark bread was not considered unusual or inferior. It was simply bread. The color told a story of grain that had not been stripped of its strength. The flour was coarse, full of life, and close to the field it came from. When people ate this bread, they knew they were eating something whole, something meant to sustain them. White bread, on the other hand, was rare. It required extra work, repeated milling, and the removal of the very parts of the grain that gave nourishment. This made it costly. Only the wealthy could afford it, and even then, it was eaten occasionally, not daily. It was a symbol of status, not health. Dark bread filled the stomach and satisfied the body. It carried fiber, minerals, and weight. A small portion could hold hunger back for hours. People did not snack constantly or crave more food soon after eating because their meals had depth. The body felt grounded, not restless. As time passed, refinement became easier and cheaper. What was once a luxury became common. White bread moved from the tables of the few to the shelves of everyone. In that shift, something important was lost. The grain became lighter, softer, and easier to eat, but also easier to overeat and quicker to leave the body empty. Modern white bread enters the stomach and disappears almost immediately. It creates a brief sense of fullness that fades quickly, leaving behind hunger and fatigue. The body asks for more, not because it needs nourishment, but because it was never truly fed. Dark bread never pretended to be gentle. It was firm, honest, and grounding. It reminded people that food was meant to support life, not entertain the mouth. Its heaviness was not a flaw. It was a sign of strength. For generations, dark bread sustained families through long days and hard seasons. It was normal because it worked. White bread became normal because it was easy. And in that exchange, nourishment quietly gave way to emptiness. Why medieval bread nourished generations? Medieval bread nourished generations, not because of one special grain or one secret recipe, but because of the way food was treated. Bread was not separated from life. It was part of the rhythm of the land, the seasons, and the body. People respected what it took to grow grain, and that respect shaped how bread was made and eaten. Grain was ground slowly, often by stone, which preserved its natural structure. Nothing was stripped away for the sake of appearance. What came from the field stayed in the flour. This gave the bread weight, depth, and real nourishment. When people ate it, the body recognized it as food that belonged. Time was given freely. Dough was allowed to rest, change, and mature before it ever reached the oven. This patience softened the grain and prepared it for digestion. Bread did not challenge the stomach. It supported it. Eating was followed by strength, not discomfort. Bread was also eaten with intention. It was not endless, and it was not mindless. A loaf was shared, respected, and finished slowly. People knew the effort behind it, and that awareness shaped moderation. The body stayed satisfied because the mind was present. Modern bread broke away from this relationship. Grain became an object of speed and profit. Time was removed. Texture was prioritized over nourishment. Bread became something to consume quickly rather than something to rely on deeply. Medieval bread worked because it aligned with human nature. It respected limits, honored patience, and supported steady energy. It did not promise pleasure without effort. It offered strength through simplicity. That is why it fed generations, not because it was perfect, but because it was honest. It asked for time, care, and restraint, and in return, it gave people something modern food rarely does anymore: lasting nourishment that carried them through life rather than distracting them from it. There was a wisdom in the way food once met the human body. Nothing was rushed. Nothing was excessive. Bread did not promise pleasure without cost. It offered strength in exchange for patience. People were not constantly searching for the next bite because what they ate had already done its work. Hunger was calm. Energy was steady. The body felt supported rather than stimulated. What has been lost is not just old grains or old ovens, but an old relationship with nourishment itself. A relationship built on respect, restraint, and trust in natural rhythms. The past does not ask us to abandon the present. It asks us to remember what once worked, to question why something so simple once carried generations through hardship, while abundance today leaves so many unsatisfied. Sometimes the most powerful lessons are not found in progress, but in what quietly sustained us long before we forgot how to listen.